Today we're speaking to an auto dealer, Ric De Reuter, who covers off the many scams that are in play right now and the things for dealers to look out for, and even consumers when buying or selling cars, new or used.
Let's jump into it.
With 30 years experience in auto logistics and state-of-the-art locations in 5 major Australian cities, Precar Fleet Services are a premier all-in-one solutions provider for commercial vehicle fleet operators, leasing companies and original equipment manufacturers. Please visit precar.com.au and click on the link to Fleet Services.
Now, Ric, a question for you. The times we're in are very interesting. And these are the best of times, and then these are the most interesting of times. And with the advent of us all going online and digital and cashless societies, etc., gone are the days of people rolling up with a whole heap of money, but they're not allowed to buy a car. And the digital revolution where people are buying cars sight unseen, we now have been told about many scams. So we're keen to get some feedback from yourself on the sort of scams that we need to look out for in the auto industry, and if you've got any examples of some of the scams that you've seen or you've heard about.
Well, I don't think many car dealers. Well, no, that's not quite right because I don't know, and I'm not a mind reader. But I can tell you, there's a lot of people out there that won't tell you they've been scammed, and we know that for a fact. But I can tell you, I've been scammed not once, but twice. And I found myself to be quite an intelligent person, but the scams are becoming more sophisticated by the day. And a lot of things we do in the car business, we allow ourselves to be scammed. For instance, we have to change the way we do things. I don't know the answer, but I tell you what, I'm certainly working on it after being scammed. And I've certainly changed a lot of processes in my business. For instance, a lot of people don't realise that if you take a credit card payment over the phone, they can gouge the money back off you, because unless the person's in your office and hands over the credit card, then they've got the right to take the money back. And that's how we were scammed. We took a credit card payment over the phone as a deposit, mind you, and then we were paid the rest of the money by credit card. This all happened very quickly. This all happened in a 24-hour period. And then the guy cancelled the deal. So he wanted his money back. So we took out, as a car dealer, as a car dealer does, we took out our share of the cost, and he provided us with a bank account. We paid the money back in, and we thought everything was fine. The money went into a Commonwealth bank account. That all sounded fine to us. Within an hour, the money was gone offshore. The next morning, we got a call from our bank who told us that the credit cards were stolen from Europe. And because we took the payments over the phone and it doesn't come up on your machine that they are offshore cards. Whereas if he'd have been in the office and we'd identified him and identified the cards, it would have come up straight away on the cards. So consequently, the money was gouged back from us. We lost our day. Fortunately, we maintained the car. So that was a very big learning experience for us. Make no mistake about that. Now we see on the rise is speedo tampering. It's now become back to plague proportions. We had a car in the other day that was one of our brands. A woman bought it at an auction house with 71,000 Ks on it, and they were having trouble. She took it to a grey workshop, and they were having trouble with the car. So they brought it down to us. We plugged it into the computer, had a look at it, had a look at the history. The car had done 210,000 kilometres. So that's a fair whiz. So all these scams are starting to come to the fore, and especially around the fact that you go online, you see so many dealers, and we're one of them, that advertise, we will bring the car to you, we will truck the car to you, we will send the car to you. So you've got to be careful of all these things. I mean, even today, in today's world, a bank check can be cancelled now after 3 days. These people know that we want to sell our cars. They know we'll deliver the cars to them. You know, one of my guys was taken on a test drive, and she sat in the back and he sat in the front, and my guy sat in the front seat, and they got around the corner and they pulled up to change driver, and the bloke produced a weapon and told the salesman, get out of the car, I'm going to kill you. So, if you're a 25-year-old salesman, you don't need to be involved in that sort of business. And, of course, then they drove off in the car. Then you've got to go looking for it. There's a guy circulating at the moment that's taking cars, coming in and asking for dealers to let him take the car on a test drive. They don't see him again. there's all these sort of things. They're always in front of the pack. And, of course, keys, with insurance companies. If a car's stolen with a key, there is no insurance. Just recently here in Victoria, they're buying those things they plug into the modems on the motor cars now online. I think they're $900. They read the computer in the car, they start the car and they drive off. We had a car stolen in our town 2 days ago. At 3 minutes from the time they got in the car, they cut the bollards off with a cordless angle grinder, cut the locks off from, they got from Bunnings, drove the car out in 3 minutes, started it, and the car was gone. So there's all these things that we've got to be mindful of. Keys, salesman safety, the customer, identifying the customer, identifying the car they're trading in. We're seeing a lot of repairable write-offs coming through now. So there's always someone just waiting to take advantage of you. And we're big ticket items. I mean, you think about it. You steal 3 cars a year at $30,000, not a bad output. One of our Jeeps was stolen, found 6 of them in a shed, up on the border. We've installed all new security all over the car yard because we find, if I showed you some of the security late at night, what goes on my car yard, it's like they're like ants prowling around, just waiting for someone to make a mistake, leave a car unlocked or leave the keys in the car. So, yeah, more and more scams all the time, Mark, and you've got to be right on top of them.
And Rick, what's the best practice then in identifying a car? So I bring a car into you for trading. I want to sell my car. So what's best practice to prevent getting a vehicle that's not actually mine being sold to you?
Well, the very first thing is, you run a PPSR on the car. That's the very first thing that we do on all our trade-ins. We then identify the owner of the car with a license check and make sure that the owner of the car is the owner of the car. The PPSR is so good because it'll tell you if it's a repairable write-off or if it's been stolen or all the rest of it. And, of course, you've also now got to be careful of clone plates. There's clone plates everywhere. I've never seen, in my town, there's an epidemic of, the policemen I speak to of clone plates. So you've also got to be careful of that. In advertising your car online, you need to be careful that you don't identify your plate. So that's how we go about it first and foremost. We always ask for a copy of the licence. We always make sure that we drive the car. We always make sure that we PPS the car. And then, of course, to me, the old stages in the business, they can spot the damage on a motor car a mile away. So, we go through all those sort of processes before we do anything. And we always look at the trade-in first before we even think about putting them in a car. The trade-in comes in and it's parked behind the showroom and we go over it there. I suppose the biggest scam when that comes is to try and trade cars online over the phone. And that's becoming more and more. I mean, with the internet, they ring you from Queensland or New South Wales or Western Australia and you've got to take it on face value. And, of course, the big problem there comes in, how do I get my hands on the trade-in before they get their hands on their car? How do you do that? So that's also, you've got to have some rapport with other dealers in other states and those sort of things. So there's so many loopholes in our business. But I don't know how we're going to change that. I really don't, because it's the nature of the business. You used to be able to trust people. Now you can't trust anyone. So that's the philosophy we've taken.
And Rick, what are the sort of red flags because you mentioned the winding back of the clock, what sort of, from your experience, do you have a gut feel that there's something can't be the mileage for that car? And then how do you check that it has been done?
Yeah, good dealers, and there's a lot of good dealers out there. There's plenty of good dealers out there that'll pick up on that car. I personally believe that it's pretty easy to tell. If you've been around cars a long time, it's like buying a racehorse that's limping. It's pretty easy to tell. But, of course, we're employing all new people into the motor industry all the time because we're finding it very, very hard to get staff. And, I work in my business. A lot of people don't. So you've got to rely on other people. So you've got to be careful all the time. It's the little things, nobody's immune from it. Doesn't matter how clever you think you are or how smart. We traded a car this week, and this was an example, it's a current model motor car. My guys traded it. We sent it up for some new car warranty because the active cruise control wasn't working. And, of course, the dealer we sent it to said, well, the car's been involved in an accident, so that car won't be covered by warranty. And there's a $2,000 mistake. In today's world, you can't afford to keep making $2,000 mistakes. So you've got to check the cars over and make sure that you've got to look at the books. We stopped doing all that because we stopped doing so many things, and me included, over COVID because it was so easy to sell cars. And now we've got to get the good dealers, and there's so many of them. We'll go back to car dealing ABC. Up until now, that hasn't been the case. We've been allowed to go along and trade the cars, and we can make up the mistakes, and we can put them in a batch and sell them under the hammer or send them down to another auction house and get rid of them. But that's all coming to it. We've got to get back to car dealing ABC. So we have to watch everything we do. In my business, I've never seen so many people in the last 3 months come in wanting to sell cars at the door. I've never seen that in many, many years. For whatever reason, they haven't been offered enough, or they still think the high prices are there, or the other dealers picked up on the damage or all the rest of it. But that's now back in vogue. So you have to be so careful. And an old guy taught me in the motor business, you're in no hurry to buy a car, my friend, that they bring in. Look at the books. Walk through the car. Have a look at the steering wheel. Is it worn? Have a look at the brake pedal. Is it worn? Does that car represent 50,000 kilometres, or does it look more like it's done 150,000 kilometres? So, yeah, they're all the things that we do. We make sure that we do all our little checks on the car and make sure where it's come from, right down to ringing the dealer whose stamps are in the book, right down to that. We'll ring the dealer and say, did you service this car? And, have you seen this car before? Because that's all coming into vogue now, stamping up the books or falsifying the books. I mean, yourself, John, you and I could go down to one of these shops or go online. Everything's available online now, and order a stamp, Billy Smith Motors, High Street, downtown, and stamp the books, boom, 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 and away you go. You can order those stamps online. So these are all the scams that you've got to be looking for all the time.
Well, that's amazing, Rick. I think it's been a fantastic conversation. Hopefully you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
Well, I thank you both for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been lovely seeing you both and talking to you both, and I hope that someone gets some benefit out of some of it.
Thank you for listening. Hopefully you got as much out of the discussion with Ric De Reuter as we did.
Remember to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Spotify and iTunes, and we'll speak to you again next week.